Happy Friday, everybody. My name's Tom, and I'm back talking about F1 Fantasy. We've had FP1, we've had FP2, and we're jumping straight in there with my final thoughts for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix here at the Jeddah Corniche circuit. I will keep this nice and sweet, short and sweet today because, first of all, I think I'm fairly clear on where I'm going. And second of all, I've got a bit of a cold and I feel fairly rotten, so I don't want to be talking for ages and ages. And you probably just want it kind of short and sweet anyway. So let's just try and cut to the point. So let's get into it. Like I said, I've had FP1, FP2. I've got FP2 practice up at the moment. FP1 wasn't like too dissimilar, to be fair. I'm sure you've looked at the results already. I guess the big surprise is like Gasly's up there, but then Gasly has actually looked pretty decent for quite a while now in recent weeks. And he, is in the top 10 again. I think if it wasn't for the budget situation, then Gasly would certainly be like hot on my radar this week as an option. But because of the budget situation and how we're desperately trying to claw budget, probably not going there. Plus, I'd have to like move off Ocon. I think Ocon's still a fine hold at the moment, so it's kind of a shame because I think Gasly might actually be quite decent, but I'm just probably not going there. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, kind of overall picture is that surprise, and McLaren still look really good. Still look really, really good. We haven't had any of the simulations that's come out yet from F1 or anything, but I understand from looking at the long run data from a couple of sites, a couple of accounts on Twitter that they look good again. There's no real surprise there. Piastri and Norris kind of both look pretty evenly matched, I would say. They're kind of swapping around first and second place a lot of the time over the first couple of practice sessions. So I'm more than happy to just hold Oscar Piastri as my two times. I just don't see any reason to go up to Lando Norris. Like, he's probably got a bit more drive of the day potential, but then Piastri's actually been quite high in the votes for drive of the day, even though we've had some random results for drive of the day. I think Piastri is definitely due one soon, and if he keeps picking up good results, he's bound to get drive of the day. So I don't see any real benefit of cashing out loads of money on Lando Norris. So I'll be sticking with Oscar Piastri. But yeah, past that, the Ferraris don't look too great, at least in the hands of Lewis Hamilton. He seems to be a bit off it. Both practice sessions, Leclerc looked fairly decent, still a little bit off it. George Russell, particularly in FP1, was like top of the charts for quite a long time, looking pretty strong. And down there in 7th in FP2, but the other sort of surprise, I guess, is the fact that the Williams look pretty strong. Again, I'm focusing more on FP2 at the moment because it's more representative of the time of day and everything. So that's why I'm not really looking at FP1 at the moment. But just looking at FP2 is a bit more dialed in and representative. So yeah, Sainz has been consistently good through the day. Albon's looked pretty good consistently today. Williams again are kind of like in my thinking a little bit, but again I'll explain in a minute why I'm probably not going down there. And then yeah, past that, Antonelli looks like he's sort of growing into the weekend, a little bit off the pace, just a tad, but not that far behind. George Russell looked okay in first practice, so yeah, not too worried about holding Mercedes necessarily. So yeah, let's flick over to the team. This is my team. It probably looks a lot like your team, unless you've stuck. It's pretty much like this, or you've stuck with the hazards, and you've got something I don't know, something that looks kind of like this, for example. And I think a lot of people were talking and asking, should we be going down this route? I think it's fine. George Russell's set for like a 0.1 rise, has for a 0.6. But I don't think the budget gained is worth it for me. If you're sat on this team already, then I'd argue it's maybe I'd be more likely if I was already sat on this team to kind of stick with this team, especially if you're potentially going limitless in Miami. But yeah, I think as I'm not on that team and I'm already sat on the Mercedes build, I just see no real reason to hop off a strong constructor here. Just not going to go down that route. I think the budget gain potential of the Haas constructor is just not enough. If they could go like a million, if Mercedes could only go up 0.3 and Haas were going to go up a million, then I would be all over Haas, I think. But just 0.6, just 0.3 difference in the budget gain for what I anticipate on an average weekend to be outscored by Mercedes by easily 30, 40 points, particularly on a track that's fairly difficult to overtake. So I don't think Haas are going to score too strongly this week. For me personally, I'm more than happy to just stick with the Mercedes. George Russell still looks good. Antonelli still gives me confidence, even though he's new to this whole shebang. But yeah, still pretty happy with this. In terms of the big question mark is probably like Doohan slash Bortoletto slash Alonso slash Gasly, whatever. And I'm still leaning towards this very boring move of bringing in Bortoletto. And I know he didn't have any run in FP2. There was some sort of fuel leak or something. I can't remember the exact details, but that is obviously some concern. Maybe some reliability. Is he going to get DNF? Blah blah blah. But given our options, and when we look at the budget gain and stuff, and we've talked about this extensively. I'm not going to go through it all right now, but we know that the budget gain potential this weekend is real slim, and the chance to lose budget is quite high. I might stick with doing because I think he's got slightly more potential. Like the Alpine looks definitely much more competitive than the Sauber. But the fact that Bortoleto just can't drop, I don't know, it's kind of tempting. I think it's sensible to go Bortoleto, but I wouldn't hate staying with doing, to be completely honest. And I do kind of hate, for points potential, Bortoleto's looked pretty awful. He looks like he's going to qualify like P19, P20, and probably just kind of finish around there as long as he does finish. If you pick him, you obviously don't want him to DNF, but I see very, very little points potential game with Bortoleto, and I see Doohan has a bit more of a potential upside. He's certainly got a bit more overtake potential, for example, even though it's not a great track for overtaking. But yeah, so I think I am still slightly leaning towards the Bortoleto pick and just running with this and having that flexibility. That's the key thing of this team. It gives you great flexibility, 3 transfers for free going into Miami, which we might be needing all 3 of those to adjust again for the budget. Now the budget situation is kind of stagnant. No, everyone's in the same sort of boat here. There's nothing really to jump on in terms of gaining budget. No one's drastically losing budget necessarily. You might just get a couple of hits of 0.2. Hopefully, is like the worst case scenario. So the fact that going into Miami, where if you're not using Limitless, you can then use those 3 transfers to just optimize your budget game potential. As we drop off the round 3 Japan Grand Prix results with the low scoring, that's going to fall off coming out the other side of Miami. So then we'll focus more on the round 4 points. So I think there'll be a lot more budget game potential, particularly with the sprint weekend in Miami, extra points on offer. I think it's important to have that flexibility going into Miami. So that's why. I'm even more interested in just making this one move. And like I say, I might not even make them. It might just hold doing. I don't know. I think because of the risk of losing budget, I probably would miss out on doing and go Bortoleto. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on FP3 and see if there's any further reliability issues for the Sauber. If that is a concern, then I may well just stick with doing. Past that, like I say, Ocon looks like he's going to qualify, go out of Q1. So I'm not sure. It's probably a good option just to hold him, to be honest, and he's got that good score from the last race in Bahrain to back him up for budget game potential down the line. Otherwise, I would actually be genuinely interested in someone like Gasly. I think he's got generally good potential for points this weekend, and an outside chance to go back to the F1 Fantasy Tools. You see Gasly here, he needs 13 points to get a positive rise. I think 13 points is more or less within the realms of possibility from this weekend. I'd anticipate him to get into Q3. I'd anticipate him to qualify in that P6 to 10 region. If he has a really good lap, then you never know, maybe even better. So that's already like a few points on the board. If he starts with 3-4 points on the Saturday, then he only needs to kind of hold position, maybe get a couple of overtakes, and he might scrape a rise. He might. But past that, he only needs 4 points just to get a 0.2 loss. So you're not really, it's probably more ideal than having to do. And the only problem is, obviously, for me personally, that it requires me to. Oh, no, it doesn't actually, does it? I can actually just hold. I think I can actually. I just realised I can just hold doing. I can just make that switch straight from Ocon. I could actually do that with one move then. That's actually kind of interesting. This whole time I've been so focused on doing, and it's like, actually, I don't need to make those 2 moves. I can just do Ocon to Gasly, and that is interesting because Gasly's also got a good score coming off the back of Bahrain of 13 points compared to Ocon's 15. It was obviously very even. Their current prices, 9.3 or 9.4, so their requirements coming out the other end going into Miami are going to be very similar. And I think that Ocon's kind of rid his luck maybe a little bit of the whole positions gained and everything for Haas. Gasly looks like maybe just a bit more consistent, and maybe with in the sprint weekend in Miami, he's got a little bit more potential for just getting a couple of extra points. So it is worth some consideration, definitely going and looking at Gasly. So, but yeah, that's where I'm kind of torn at the moment. I'll wait for FP3 obviously and see if there's any more shenanigans going on. But yeah, that's kind of more or less where I am. I will discuss Limitless, and as much as I'd like to go Limitless, I think it's just too hard to tell if we hop back to like FP2, for example. It's a little bit hard to tell who would you even pick. Obviously, the McLaren boys would be in there. I think you'd go Verstappen, and I think you probably would go Leclerc because he's shown good consistency and he's been decent around here before. And then who's that 5th driver? Like probably George Russell, but then Snowden's looked good. I know he's crashed out in FP2, but he looked good before that. Sainz has looked quite decent. Gasly's quite decent. Is Antonelli going to get in there? I'd say it's probably George Russell. He'll probably turn up and qualify well and secure. So Limitless users are probably looking at like Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, I guess. But then who's that constructor? Like, if Antonelli isn't quite there, Hamilton's not quite there, do you go Ferrari on Limitless? Do you go Mercedes? So it's not clear. And the last 2 seasons I've used Limitless, in my mind on that weekend, it's been pretty clear. Like China last year, it's been pretty clear. The year before that was Monza. I know that was a bit of an outlier, but it felt right at the time. I went Monza and it worked out really nicely. This year, I'm going to be waiting for that kind of same vibe, if you like. And I'm not quite feeling it at the moment, so Limitless is probably off the table, but we'll see if something drastic happens, or if someone comes up with some master plan in the F1 fantasy community and I change my mind. But at the moment, Limitless is kind of off the table for me, so probably not going down that road. The only other thing I want to talk about just quickly is the potential of like Williams. I would be again interested in Williams, but the whole budget thing is the issue here. So Williams look pretty good. They look strong. Like I say, if I keep flicking pages here, I'm sorry, but if we look at Williams, P5 for signs, and he looked pretty consistently good throughout the Friday so far. P7 in FP1, Albon up there in P5 and FP1. We go back to practice 2, and there they are again, P5 Carlos Sainz and down in P10 Alex Albon. They've looked good. James Vowles has come out since FP2 and said he expects them to be challenging for Q3. That's exactly what you want to hear as a fantasy manager. It would make me think, oh yeah, Williams great, Q3 lots of points, 10 points against Q3 for both drivers. Hold position on a difficult to overtake track, they could be in for a reasonable amount of points, which can justify the slight deficit, probable deficit to Mercedes to get that extra prize money. But when we actually look at what Williams require, they actually need 21 points. It's actually like starting to get a bit steep for them. And I would anticipate if they do as well as I think they potentially could do here, then yeah, they could score 20, 30 points, for example. But on a low overtake, low positions gained, I think they might even struggle, even though it's a good weekend in reality where they, if they finish like P8, P10 or whatever, they'll be very happy with that. But the reality in fantasy is that they're going to struggle to really get that 21 points. I think they'll be more or less there, but they're more likely to just hit 0.2 gain. And then at that point, why are you picking them? You might as well just have Mercedes, who are just almost guaranteed to get like a 0.3 gain. So same sort of story for Albon. I think he's an okay pick, and I think he could get to 12 points here to get a slight rise, and he should certainly avoid, as long as he doesn't get a DNF, avoid too much of a drop, so just getting that 1 point to get the 0.2 drop. So I think Williams would be great if this number over here, 21, was a lot lower. If it was like what it has is minus 16, then I think Williams suddenly become a quite good option, because I think they got the potential for scoring decent points, but I probably wouldn't go down there personally. So like I say, just to kind of summarize, like I say, I am feeling pretty rotten today. Blame the kids, man. When you become a parent, you just get ill so much because your kids catch everything. But yeah, my likely move is either just kind of stay as it is, or do the kind of bog standard drop doing down to Bortoletto. If I'm kind of getting cold feet about that, then I might just kind of, like I say, hold fire. There is also the option potentially of Ocon out, Gasly in. I don't hate that. I really don't hate that, to be honest. I think it's got reasonable points potential this week on a difficult overtake track. Could be the week where the Has boys just kind of don't live up to their track record so far this season, and getting on board with a Gasly who's looking good, looking confident in this track. It's got some appeal. Like I say, he's not too much difference in terms of points potential. I know he's 4 instead of Ocon's 1, and it's very easy for Ocon to only get a 0.2 drop. But Gasly, as long as he doesn't DNF, I would anticipate Gasly to quite easily clear that 0.2, but there's no guarantee of that, obviously. So I'm definitely interested in Gasly, and I'll be monitoring the situation. But at the same time, Ocon is still kind of a fine hold. So we'll see. We'll make our final decision, obviously, ahead of the deadline on the Saturday. So that's kind of my final thoughts there. More or less staying the same. Not likely to use Limitless. Rethinking the whole Limitless thing. Might still use it in Miami, but I'd like to have those 3 transfers going into Miami if for pure flexibility reasons. Looking maybe potentially more like something like Imola or something. People have mentioned Monaco for Limitless, and I'm going off on a tangent here talking about Limitless now, but I think Monaco seems quite decent because, low overtake, that seems great. But then I was also thinking, if your driver qualifies badly, you get your Limitless team and 1 or 2 of your drivers don't qualify well, they have a mistake in Q3 and they qualify back in like P9. It's going to be real hard for them to recover. You're almost locked out. You've locked your Limitless team in a lot of trouble if you go in Monaco. So I'm kind of reluctant to go down that route. I'm thinking either Miami or Imola at the moment, but it could also stretch it further down the line towards Spa or something. But at the moment, the key point is that on this Friday evening ahead of this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, I'm probably not going Limitless. Just don't feel it, to be honest. Not seeing enough from the top teams to really cement that. And like I say, it's not just the top teams aren't quite there, but also the likes of Gasly and Sainz are right up there in the mix. They could upset a Limitless team. They had the potential, I think. So yeah, those are kind of my summary final thoughts this Friday. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Like I say, it has been pretty quick and frantic of me talking through because my head is stuffy and horrible and I just want to go and relax. So yeah, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Have a great Friday evening. Hit me in the comments for any suggestions, agree or disagree with what I've been saying, but that's kind of where I'm thinking. So yeah, catch you soon and farewell for now. Bye bye.